Okay, once again, we are here with Peter Singh, and we're going to talk again about the amazing news that's unraveling with AI.
Another day, another breakthrough, mate.
My gosh.
Hey, the singularity.
Yeah, there's so many,
The
there's
hell?
so much that's happened again this week. Um,
Yeah. I mean, right after we had that discussion, right, about GPT-4 and then the release with Microsoft Copilot, then they start rolling out these plugins,
yeah,
the plugin marketplace.
that
And
just
they've already had like dozens of logos on there, including Wolfram Alpha, right?
yes, and it's going to kill. There's so many startups that have their entire business model based around some sort of aspect, and it's just killed it.
I know. Well, we were talking about how Google was going to try to outcompete on this, but it looks like they've just gone from feature to platform overnight through this plugin marketplace from OpenAI, and the fact that when they were talking about if Google was trying to restrict access to the data, companies like Expedia, like Zapier, like Wolfram Alpha, all of
Yeah,
these startups have actually opted in to OpenAI and enabled OpenAI to integrate with that data straight away. So I think they've got that first mover advantage. That network effect is actually going to drive further and further adoption. But what's really cool is that the now this GPT-4 is still a large language model. So, it's predicting the next word. But now it's got the benefit of Wolfram Alpha's computational irreducibility of things like, what's things that people actually care about grounded on facts and truths. So mathematical calculations like Mathematica, physics,
mm,
all the calculations you
that's
want to
right.
have, things around the world, distances between cities, which the large language models used to get confused about, hallucinated about.
Yes,
All those calculations are now can be called upon Wolfram Alpha as an API to actually get the right answer and the
wow,
latest answer as well. So it's got the access to the internet, eyes and ears.
my goodness. Well, I did a test just earlier today with Bing. I asked Bing, which appeared in my Skype app just out of nowhere. So I decided to test it, and I asked it, what's the distance between Sydney and Melbourne along the Princess Highway? And it gave me an answer specifically, and I think maybe okay, that's right. So I thought, okay, this is going okay. And then I decided to ask it, I want to install a SFTP server. So write a bash script that allows me to install a SFTP server and create 3 users. And I just came up with 3 users. And it said, sorry, I can't do this. Here are some references on how to do it. Then I took the same prompt and I pasted it into ChatGPT. It wrote out everything for me.
Yeah, and they're being really sort of try to restrict it around the search with that sort of their model, right? Their Prometheus model wrapped
Mm,
around it to really look at indexation of the websites that searches it first, tune it towards that. But yeah,
yeah.
GPT-4 actually goes through everything and prioritizes things like Stack Overflow and the code for you. And so I've been actually using it as well. I built out this soft piece of software using a combination of GPT-4 and Replit, which I think eventually Replit would also have a plugin, right, in that plugin marketplace. But
Oh, wow.
basically, I just needed something for to visualize organization charts, not talking about employees because that's easy, but corporate organizations, right? Talking about joint ventures, multiple ownerships, overseas
Oh, my
entities,
gosh.
trusts, right? All these different, mazes and matrices of
Yes.
ownership models, right? So I just wanted to be able to upload an Excel with the sort of percentage ownerships
Yeah.
and have that visualized. And I described all of those features, right, into GPT-4, and I said, do this so that it's, basically integrates with the Replit, so that I can just paste it into Replit IDE. and it did that and actually described step by step how it was, creating the requirements.txt, going to be written in Python. These are the things
PY,
that'll
yeah.
automatically, set up with Python. And then, yeah, I ran the whole thing step by step. It gave initially some run errors, and I pasted the error
And
into the
you
chat.
told it, what do you
And
do
it sort
about
of was
this
like,
stuff?
apologies for the confusion. I kind of forgot you were using Replit. These are the additional requirements you had to do it. But after a couple of times, it ran and it actually visualized in Replit the actual program. So, this is actually just going to accelerate the prototyping process. And with plugins like Zapier, that's actually going to, Zapier, and it's going to actually
Yes.
automate that end to end as well, right? Because
Because
you've
then you
already
don't
got
have to
workflows ready to
copy
go.
and paste it from the chat
Yeah,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, I think people were thinking that it's still another decade away in terms of automating software development because, actually still need the engineering and the integrations part.
Mm.
But based on this architecture, the marketplace of plugins, the LLMs actually make it easier to create the APIs for the plugins as well. So
Yes. In
you're like
fact,
accelerating that.
they can. I think it was from one of your posts or something that they could actually make the whole API. You just describe the API to it, and it works out all the interconnect and how
It's
to do it.
speeding up its own acceleration of integrations. So it's kind of like I also saw some of that the fact that you could train it, it could do that recursive process of reviewing its own work, right, and just continuing to
Oh my
recurse
gosh.
and regress that way. And eventually, I think you're gonna have it reviewing itself multiple times before it spits out the answer. So it's gonna get even more accurate. Now, Jan LeCun thinks, eventually we'll just end up with all this sort of fake training data sets,
Mm.
and you'll get, very small number of actual things that represent reality and what humans want. That's where I think human in the loop is still important to validate, want to see in that.
Yeah.
But if it's going to keep on improving in that way, and we're still involved in making it better, like if you can't find the answer on GPT-4 through your error prompts, you're going to look in Stack Overflow, right? Stack Overflow's got it. Once that's there, you don't have to ask it again. You don't have to look up Stack Overflow again. You just prompt it through GPT. So yeah, it's going to be like the what are the gaps, right?
Yes.
Eventually, all of it, all of that human knowledge flow into
Well,
um
you could call that
yeah,
those little gaps gapnium.
Gapnium. That's it. Subscribe, guys. Like and subscribe.
'Cause that's why I came up with my anyway.
That's it.
Yeah, it's like our little gaps in our knowledge. But uh, oh, I forgot what was. Oh yes. What about if you got a model and you trained it on how to train other models?
And
So
this is yeah.
that would speed up so much. Like you would just get it to go, oh,
Yeah.
now you train this
Yeah.
other model on this.
Well, that was the idea behind GANs, right? Generative adversarial networks. That's how the initial deep fakes
Yeah,
were
the
so
deep
good,
fakes,
right?
yes.
It's like this person does not exist using a GAN because the models would keep being adversarial to each other to say, well, that doesn't look that real. That doesn't look that real. And iterating, it's something that passes. So that approach is also fed into
Yeah.
that evolution of the transform. And to an extent, these zero shot GPT models basically already sort of have a go at that. But you're right, you could get another model to the work, which is that recursive process. But eventually, you're gonna end up with all these sort of
Yeah.
I guess it's overfitting. That's sort of
It's like a
almost data science
diminishing
type of
returns.
yeah. But yeah, no, we need things like ground truths, right? And the perfect ground truths that are out there has been made over the last 40 years
Mm.
from Wolfram Alpha, right? So he's actually
Yeah.
thought way ahead of this, right? He thought, okay, out of all the possible sort of things that would be relevant, starting from physics to everything around the universe to things that humans would care about. Why doesn't he started to build up this whole knowledge base, semantic web of information? So that's what Wolfram Alpha set out to do, and it's
Yes.
very useful education, basically algebraic sort of things you could just type out, have answers, it would understand what you're trying to prompt, matching it to the relevant computational language alpha model. And so that is actually the computational irreducibility, right, of language can now be called upon by these large language. GPT-4 calls upon Wolfram Alpha to get that ground truth. That's how it will be able to create things, right? So in order to be able to say do new research, it has to be grounded on reality, build
Yes.
on that, and run the experiments that maybe humans haven't done yet. And so it has to start with that ground truth to have a paper that is based on the scientific method, hypothesis, experiment.
Well, yeah, so with the hypothesis that is testable,
And
I guess he
exactly,
could still come up with a billion theories on things.
right? And
Um,
have the assumptions based on physics and computational languages, computational irreducibility to it. But I was just listening to Wolfram Alpha, Stephen Wolfram's talk about, how his theory of everything that has been looking at over the last 3 years, but really carries all the way back to his early
initial
days of
work.
education in mathematics. Yeah, so the physics project. So the challenge right now, right? We can't you know, marry up general relativity and quantum
Quantum.
mechanics
Yeah,
because say at the singularity of a black hole, right, everything breaks down
everything
because you end
falls
up
apart.
dividing
Yeah.
by zero and you get on your calculator the
Divide by zero.
div
Yeah.
zero error,
Yes.
and so so that's been unresolved to this date. And lots of theories have attempted at trying to resolve it, like string
String
theory,
theory.
right? Superstring theory, like
Ah, yes.
M theory,
M theory.
basically all these other approaches try to like reconcile the two models, but none of them have produced,
Well,
useful results. Like none of them have actually have testable hypotheses that can be generated and experimented on today. Right, string theory
yes.
thinks, if we have a computer the size of the universe, or if you look at sort of potential imprints of other worlds, along onto our this multiverse, you might be able to detect that through astronomy. But I think Stephen Wolfram's computational theory of the universe is actually pretty a close candidate out of all, because it does start with the notion that the universe itself is computation, like on hyperspace. So time itself is computation. So whenever, say, a unit of time passes, that's the computation of how physics is interacting with each other, making those calculations. So that's
Mm.
very sort of simulation theory stuff, right? So instead of space being a continuum, it's actually discrete units of
Quantized.
space, right?
That would
Quantized space,
see.
right?
That would imply that if you start to accelerate or go too fast, you're spreading the computation too thin, and
Yeah, you're
well,
running out of compute. There's not
something
enough
has to slow
GPUs,
down.
right? It's like you need additional pylons, right? It's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, like that makes a lot of sense, like from a mathematics and computation, an AI perspective, right? If you think about, what these models are doing, trying to calculate how things. So if you're running Unreal Engine 5 and you always sort of think about, okay, how many triangles I can fit in, the smallest triangle, right, in the sort of mathematical physics space of, that we know of is the Planck length, right? So the Planck length is
Yeah.
the shortest unit based on these, uh, constants that we
Max
have.
Max Planck. Yeah.
And so that's the smallest sort of unit of length.
I think
And
it
then
was
that also,
described like if you blew up a hydrogen atom to the size of the universe, the Planck will be the size of a tree. Something like that. I'm not sure.
damn. Yeah, it's
Something
right.
ridiculously
It's
small.
pretty tiny. It's
Yeah.
pretty tiny. But it's not infinite, right? Infinitely small. It's quantized. And
Yeah.
so if space is also quantized as Stephen Wolf proposing be, and you can only fit a certain number of you know, orientations of energy and matter in that sort of physical in that quantized space, then you can fully compute how everything works,
So
right?
that
If you
would
start from
be
scratch.
something about the singularity as well inside supermassive black holes. And
Yeah, well, essentially that because it starts from quantized in the first place, which is challenging the whole general relativity sort of theory around space being a continuum. Being the sort of You know, if you
Infinite.
think about how did Einstein describe it, it's sort of like a bed sheet, and you put weight on it, and that's how the planets and mass
Oh, space
bends
time.
space
Yes.
time,
Yes,
right?
space
So,
time.
you know, what Einstein's sort of view of that is that it's a continuum. It's like infinite sort of
The
discrete
sheet
amounts of
stretches.
space.
Yes.
Right, it stretches infinite. But if it's quantized, and it's sort of discrete, as Wolfram is saying, is that everything mapped on a hypergraph, right? So there's like you can have many degrees of freedom, and that's where you can generate things like string theory out of that, because giving this these matter and energy these degrees of freedom to move, and one graph unit is 1 unit of time, like Planck length of time. So like it should just all play out. He got this idea all the way from you know, when he was running uh, of things that started to like multiply, right? I'm not sure if you
Oh,
in the cellular automata, like have you heard of the cellular automata?
n- no, I have.
So kind of like, you know, say you just had a very basic program where say one cell, right, could move only this direction
Oh,
or that direction.
wait, I know it.
Yeah, like
Yes.
game of life,
It
right?
yes,
Yeah,
it is incredibly complex with only few rules.
yeah,
That's the one.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So these cellular automata, you give it very simple rules, but over a, you know,
Yes.
number of generations or run
Yeah.
cycles,
It's
it
just
basically generates like, you know, emergent properties of complexity. You have like little cellular automata creatures walking around that's
yeah.
eating up other cellular automata, and because it's sort of survival of the fittest, create an entire ecosystem that
Yeah.
we might view as sort of, you know, life, right, within
Yes.
microverse. And so that's what gave him the idea that maybe the entire universe generated through, and he dubs this concept the Ruliad, right? Like the view of that all possible can be created. So it's like the field of where all possible rules can create, and we're in the universe where this particular set of parameters in our universe has assigned these universal constants like the speed of light, right? You know,
Universal
the
constant.
gravitational constant. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So
Uh,
all the sort of parameters that we're in, but there are other, you know, realms where within the Ruliad there are other rules, right? Where
that's
realm of
interesting.
all
Yes.
possible rules.
Yes. I mean, I know that with the like the multiverse, you could say that different universes will have different values for things and energy levels. So this universe just happens to have mostly blank space and a few bits of matter, and that's how it works. Blah blah blah. Um, but then the quantized bit, if it's quantized at a very nanoscopic or if way smaller than that level, then I mean, that's why the quantum physics works at that level and the regular physics works at the bigger level. So maybe unified theory. Well,
Yeah, it breaks down at the black hole level, right? Because that's when, you know, you got Einstein's theory of gravity, and then you got the quantum effects of, say, the very small all coming together, singularity. That's where our theories break down. So we need a unified theory of everything.
well, you've got the event horizon.
You got the event horizon. You know, some
Time
say
just
it's like singularity
yeah.
is just a lot of theories, but no one has actually made a theory that can actually make useful prediction. And what Wolfram is actually putting out to say that this model, the computational view of the actually generate things simulating black hole collisions, right? So it's something that would be useful, and it's already derived general relativity through the more foundational view of the like, you know, general relatively just emerges through these sort of hyperparameter space hypergraphs. So it's kind of like the way he views the measurements that we make of our universe computationally bound, because we make some initial starting assumptions, right? It's like we assume that there's no chance that all the molecules, say, in this bottle of water or just automatically, go to one corner of the bottle. Like it's
Oh,
very,
entropy
it's
and
like a
enthalpy.
very,
No.
very low
Yeah.
probability, right? Not even in the sort of life of the universe, but it's there. There's a probability that it happens
Is it?
because of the starting conditions that we put into the model and the assumptions of running
I
that
thought everything goes towards maximum
entropy.
entropy.
Yeah, that's right. But
So,
there's a probability because in quantum mechanics, there's always a probability that electron could be
teleportation.
in this sort of field, right? This sort of whole sphere of electrons, right? There's
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah, the
probability of it
cloud.
being there with this
Yeah.
cloud, but then there's actually a probability that it ends up being on the other side of the universe as well. Just a very, very small probability that it wouldn't even happen in the life of the universe, but the probability is still there.
Okay.
Everything is technically entangled, sort of bound of the universe because that probability wave is still there, right?
I mean, I just got my head around, you know, the electrons uh, being in certain energy levels and that they would jump
Oh
between
yeah, the
energy
quantum
levels
energy,
because
the
of the
quantum leap.
quantum. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they call it, quantum leap.
And then it releases a photon anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so all of that physics, all of that computational theory of the potential universal theory of the marrying general relativity and quantum mechanics is now accessible by ChatGPT as a plugin,
I want to ask it something.
right?
I'm gonna, because so many times I would go up to the university professors when I was at uni, and I would be, I want to ask the most ridiculous question, and I'll be halfway through, and they'd just be giving me this look like
Yeah, no. It's like they should just
you're
use
wasting my
GPT-4
time.
and the Wolfram Alpha plugin.
Now I can just ask ChatGPT, if you had a black hole made of antimatter and another black hole made of matter,
Yeah.
and then they were just around. I don't
Well,
know.
he reckons, well, the first prediction he's going to try to make is that dark matter is actually a property of this quantized space, like this,
Oh,
um, yeah,
is it a thing really?
unitized space. Exactly. So
Because we don't know.
we've been trying to look for dark matter for like decades now, right? They thought there were these weekly interact, you know, like
They were trying to explain the galaxy
wimps.
spins like a pizza because of dark matter.
Yeah, yeah. Calling them wimps because they don't rock up, right? That's the thing. Like it's a bit mean. Like wimps
Maybe
have
the
feelings
Higgs.
too, right?
The Higgs
Maybe in
isn't
some
giving.
multiverse,
The Higgs doesn't want to play with
the
them.
Higgs, the Higgs don't lie, and like so they've been trying to have all these theories, but none of them have. Some of them are saying there might be something to do with how gravity works over longer distance. But yeah, I mean, if Wolfram and this physics computational view of theory of everything comes out with actually a prediction, and then they're able to test that prediction, say in the Large Hadron Collider, looking at spaces. Probably unlikely, but they could actually model out what would happen when the black holes collide, and they can actually measure the gravitational waves and make a prediction on how those waves should be viewed, right? So the outputs of that, and that might explain the dark matter that are concentrated is, right? Or dark matter,
Yeah,
but really it's just
dark
quantized space.
energy and matter, and they did
Yeah, dark energy as well.
they did observe recently. I think they observed a pulsar, two pulsars colliding, and they recorded the gravity waves coming
Yeah,
out of that.
Ligon.
Yeah, with the I can't remember which satellite they used, but it's so it would be interesting to see how similar that is compared to the simulation of the black holes colliding.
I mean, the black holes would be like different like orders of
Oh,
magnitude, but still, like you want to be able to sort of have those sort of standard candles, right? To be able to that against regularly. Not that many black hole collisions probably points to it, right?
well, speaking of the standard candles, that's also would that be spinning black holes, primordial,
Yeah, I
or
mean, so you've got your
because
Schwarzschild black holes that are
yeah,
spinning, and then
because the quasars were obviously spinning, so they would have to be. Anyway, I'm just splitting hairs here. So
uh, there's well, we've all seen like Interstellar, right? And they had like
the
Kip
wormhole
Thorne.
going through the bulk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The Kip Thorne, they had a theoretical physics as like as a consultant to that movie, right?
Mm, that
Holland.
blew
So
my mind.
yeah, new
Gosh.
Chris that off. It's like, but yeah, Kip Thorne was like, look, you got to visualize the black hole exactly as it would based on our current understanding of it.
I
And
can't
they
help
did,
but
and it was spinning. And it
yes.
had the mind bending lights going through it as a wormhole.
Mm,
And so yeah, that the first, visualize what a wormhole might look
yeah.
like. Black hole itself and black hole. The only part that like ruined it for me for that movie was that they said love was, like
Oh
beyond all
gosh. Okay.
like like for the people that believe they're all
I I I
big
I
love fans.
I let that slide. But what I just had a
Love is the answer.
I couldn't. You saw how the rocket takes off from Earth. That's 1 g of gravity. They got onto what's his name's planet.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, that's right.
It's a,
Gargantuan's like moon.
it's a tiny little spaceship
Yeah.
that still achieves
How does it
escape velocity.
how does it get escape velocity in that?
How does it? How does it?
While it was drenched in the water as well.
Yeah. And back on Earth, we're using
Uh,
like space shuttle sized
uh,
thrusters.
they had to move the plot somehow to make them, lose the whole 20 years, right, or something like that. And, they had to get Matthew McConaughey sitting through that screen, crying as he saw, daughter and son go through their lives, right? Like, they had to just get to that scene. So I think it was worth the plot holes, but, that's awesome.
Look, I have to take my hat off to whoa,
Incredible movie.
forgot his name now.
Yeah. They had AIs in that movie too, right?
They were really good AIs.
Yeah, they had the not
Sa-
so
s-
intimidating looking robot.
SARS? No.
Yeah, Tars.
TARS.
And what was interesting about that was like Tars, you could adjust different like personality levels,
Yes.
honesty levels. Right?
And they did it was a very good demonstration of the difference between, how people say, oh, you have to always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. You don't have to always tell the truth.
Sometimes it's not the best thing, like
The best thing to
emotionally
do,
for the situation.
yeah, you don't always tell the truth. You always do. The best thing to do in the situation is always the best thing to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes the best thing to do is to lie.
Just don't be a 9,000, right? So it's like, just like,
The Mobius loop. What do you call
sorry,
it? Loop?
Dave.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave.
But
Can't
like
allow
that,
that
so,
to happen.
yeah, in that, that whole history they brought up, it's like there were wars that happened because of climate change and scarcity. So they had to like, downsize what the AIs could do, right? Just useful for humanity. I wonder if, that's the, process we might have to go through as well. Because, at this rate, like I'm watching the internet freak out. So Twitter, I saw this post about someone that uses Blender in their work. They do 3D modeling. It's a small company, right? But he loves
Yes.
his job. He loves making these 3D assets. It's put his love and heart and soul into it. And because his coworker isn't as into it, his quality is slightly better in the old days.
Yeah.
But now with like, Mid-Journey and GPT-4, like all these integrations with Unity and Blender that you could do, like they both achieve the same like quality of work because of the same basic prompts, and he lost it. He was just like, what's the point of doing this? And plus
Nihilism.
I've probably got to get automated anyway, because the boss probably realizes, oh, I could just tell GPT-4 what I want instead of these guys are giving me it's help.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of the stuff I give to my sysadmins, I'm gonna not give it to them because I could just tell an AI, oh, I need install Zabbix on this server, please.
Yeah.
Done.
Like I'm just like the stuff that I would typically delegate. I'm starting to just use GPT-4 for because I realize that it's faster. You can iterate cycle it faster. Think about like the outsourcing work people would fast around, overseas dev shops, right? That's all became onshored initially because they thought the quality and the speed of iteration closer to the problem would be better. Now you've also eliminated the cost of that. So everyone would go through that same journey. Outsourcing devs, all of that. Back to the single person with carrying it.
That's a huge topic in and of itself, like how this is going to affect the world economy and things like, you know, all the jobs that people are doing, as you said, can just be reduced to, several prompts.
Like we got
That's happening.
it's like three huge collision courses happening at right. So we got this sort of AGI, like the march towards AGI, so that we can get a better search engine, right? There's like all the competitors are just like, we want the best search engine, and they're all sort of marching towards like Skynet. And then you've got, the banking crisis, losing our faith in the whole, what is money happening, or so people like, why do I put my money
Mm.
in a bank when Federal Reserve only guarantees, hey, why don't I just put it into crypto and actually, self custody? Because if inflation happens anyway,
Yeah.
money's not going to be worth as much. At least crypto will be
See,
benchmarked against itself.
Federal Reserve doesn't have a ground truth. It doesn't have
Yeah,
the gold Wolfram Alpha
that's
standard.
right.
It's just floating around
Exactly.
in
It just keeps
Neverland.
on minting and invariably, and it's so delayed as well. You have to like change monetary policy once every month. I saw this
Yeah.
post about using GPT-4. Someone had wrote, describe the US dollar as if it was a cryptocurrency and the tokenomics behind it, right? So
Oh,
GPT-4 had a great crack at it. It said, welcome to the world of the USDC, the US dollar digital currency, right? Backed by the trust and versatility of the United States federal government. And it was like the consensus mechanism was like, trust of proof of authority, right? It's like it's just all completely centralized by the Federal Reserve
and just
and the
have
Federal.
right at the top, in God we trust.
Yeah, it did have good scores on utility though. It's like can be used pretty much anywhere.
It's federal. It's the world reserve currency
Yeah,
still.
that's right. And the staking rewards was like you can buy these government bonds and earn
Oh,
right the
government bonds again. I
the
love it.
rates.
How
And if
many
you stake for
years?
10 years and they change the interest rates and you have this unrealized loss on your balance sheet, well,
It's like playing bingo. It's like going to the slot machines
yeah, it's like bingo,
at
yeah.
Vegas.
Vegas, mate, yeah. Games. So you got that, right? And then you got the war that's still going, right? Russia's war in Ukraine. And you know what's happening, everyone's beating the drums of war. Taiwan, AUKUS that's happening, sort of like these three colliding new world order initiatives, right? Like over the next say 2 to 3 years. This is
And yeah, so AI,
yeah,
banking and financial sector, war in the Ukraine,
wars in globally, right? The threat
and
of World War III, nuclear Armageddon,
yeah,
kind of thing.
minor minor things in the grand scheme of things.
And I don't know if like will AI be able to sort of try to solve for some things, or will it exacerbate them? Will it create this? Already, it's able to trade better, right, and do a better arbitrage, just faster reaction. All the proprietary traders right now in government bonds, for example, they can't do this through physical reactions to say the latest announcements of the interest rate rises or cuts,
Starlink.
right? Yes, Starlink, yeah, you need the high latency too, right? But then processing that decision, really just delegate that to an AI, you would actually be pretty high chance of doing it right, and also pretty much faster than the other human trying to do it. Probably faster than the AIs as well, other AIs using this
It's a
sort of
race to the
latest.
bottom everywhere.
So like, and will it exacerbate wars as well? So that the Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping having a discussion, and
I saw that.
Z on his way out, Z into the car, Z was like, you know, you're not gonna see this much change for over the past 100 years, right? And we're here to build it together. And so it's just like, what? It's like some super villain stuff, right? But like they're totally right. Changing world order. The Ray Dalio been talking about in his Principle New World Order book, and the video about this has happened so many times in the past, the rise and fall of empires, right? From the Dutch to the British to the Americans, all the way back to the Romans, even, right? And so, like, it's at a point where you have these two superpowers that are
Mm.
one's yeah seeding and the other rise.
You know, I mean, it's on our radars. It's on your radar, my radar, and a lot of people we talk to. My wife, it's not on her radar at all. She works in the
Things to
hospital.
think about, right? Yeah, you got like immediate things within your sphere of influence to worry about. You got pay, you've got tasks to, you got
Yeah,
projects to do, milestones to meet. You got annual feedback reviews to come up,
she's
right?
doing
Like
she's
human to
doing all that.
human interactions.
She was really happy with ChatGPT because it helps her create R code because she does stuff in R. I mean, yeah, so she's like, give me your phone. I'm like, okay, there you go.
Give me
And this is like at
give me a
11 o'clock
computer.
at night, and she's like talking to ChatGPT about some R code something, and
Oh
then
wow,
then she
cool.
throws the phone back at me and goes to a computer and does something.
Ah, see, yeah, it does help with ideas, right? If
Yeah.
stuff in debugging, paste it in. Just don't put in
Oh,
sensitive
she
client
hasn't
data.
done that. She just asks the questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't throw in sensitive client information because it might start appearing in someone else's answers. But the
that's
way we're
that's the
doing
next
it
thing.
right now is like our dedicated instance. Have our own Azure instance.
So we now need. I think that this is going to happen just like it did with Android ROMs. We're going that like right now across China. There's 10,000 companies installing Llama,
Yeah,
Alpaca, and what's the new one?
Dolly,
Dolly.
Dolly.
They're installing it on instances, and it'll be available on eBay for $50.
Yeah, and they'll just bake it into your browser plugin.
Oh yeah, and then it'll be private,
Yeah.
VPN, SSH tunnel, whatever, and then there you go. Train it.
I saw this thing called Edit GPT, so everything you do on the internet could just be edited with GPT. It's like your typing is,
Oh.
as soon as you open a text prompt, like autocomplete for everything.
Also, it kind of trains itself on what it thinks you are going to do next.
Yeah, yeah, That's it. Edit GPT. Oh man, who needs Grammarly, right? It's like something actually
That's
does the work for you.
See, that's the other thing about these large language models. Just as a side effect, they can speak perfect language, and then they can also translate from one language to another, from one computer language to another computer language. With all the nuance, it's like any idioms or proverbs in one language that don't make sense in the other language, it'll change them.
Yeah.
It's just
And now with that Wolfram Alpha integration, any calculation foundation. I don't know, like what could stop. So Sam Altman had an interview recently with Kara Swisher, and he was like,
ah,
Kara was like, so if do you think this is AGI? He's like, no, I don't think it's AGI, but something.
he won't say that.
I know exactly right. And she's like, so what's stopping it? And he said he was actually on. There will be another paradigm shift. It's going to be something that a different algorithm, a different approach to large language models that will be that sort of final quantum leap. Like that'll be that paradigm shift that gets that whole solving the whole intelligence, potentially, understand consciousness, all of that. But
What's more there to solve? I mean, it looks like he solved it to me.
I
I
know,
mean,
right? From like our experience, right? So like what it could be missing. But
it's the
what he's
next thing.
saying is that he's on the lookout. He's actually watching this a startup where really talented founders and the space, different cognitive architectures that he's keeping an eye out right now.
Yep,
That could be that final paradigm shift.
I think that's smart.
Because what's
That's a smart
challenged
way
right
to
now
look
is
at
like,
it.
we talked about large language models have still a trillion words to be able to ingest it in order to
Mm,
do this learning
but
process,
like Alpaca
right?
7B,
Mm,
it's very important when you have the right weights and
yeah.
training,
Yeah,
and it can just
exactly. You have to
outperform it
have the
as
right
well.
weights.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like it's not really learning in a way that's think of babies learn, right? So
Yeah,
babies
yeah.
have that baked in DNA, and that's sort of the symbolic side of stuff. That could be the Wolfram Alpha equivalent of your, initial conditions, right? Everything that's baked into the
Yeah.
DNA with
Look,
the large language model that sort of sits on top, that's open to learning.
the neocortex.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about that a lot this week, and I was thinking about, uh, you know, our brains, our neural networks. I mean, they're constantly firing, and they do a lot of stuff really, really well, like navigating the world, walking, talking, interacting with objects and all this. That's very underappreciated, the way that they can do that. But then what we believe is the real test is how it performs ingesting a document of text and all this other, and it was never designed to do that as a priority. I mean, ingesting a page of text for our brain, I mean, that's like 50th on the list of priorities.
Well, it needs to be
Yeah.
multimodal in general enough, right? So Ilya Sutskever, right, and another
Yeah.
co-founder of AI, he was like, actually, perception can be converted into language, right? So all the sort of the visual, the image that's enabled, right, gets the video and all the sort of sensory
Mm,
inputs have audio,
mm,
taste, right,
yeah.
and all those sort of things can be language in the large language model. That's how these
Oh,
LLMs
yes,
see,
yes.
right, and hear and taste and experience the world. And so, I think Tesla's already deploying LLMs in their full driving, and they just demonstrated with like 11.3.3, the rollout, the beta, that
Right.
you just do like it's guy was doing an Uber trip like, while using FSD, and he filmed the whole thing, and he actually just able to do end to end, no interventions needed.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so he made money on the video. He made money doing the Uber, and he's like also getting feedback from the public. It's just like
So
the
that's
best entertaining video ever, right?
automated return of
Yeah,
like complete income stream without having to do anything. Now, see, you've got there. Oh, what was I going to say? Um, oh, I forgot.
yeah, on the perceptions.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah,
So Jeff Hawkins, he was the CEO of Palm back in the day, but he did a very a memorable talk at the RSA 2008 conference, and he talked about the macaque monkey and how its brain works, and how our neural nets devolve, unravel in sequences of sequences of sequences, and it doesn't matter if it's the eyeballs connected to the brain or the ears connected to the brain. It all, when you look at the brain and how it works, it's all doing exactly the same thing. It's very, very quick and at the base level, like individual sensors from each nerve. Then as you go up, it gets slower and slower, but more high level. And so he said that it's like listening to a melody, and these neurons at one level of the sequence, they're listening and they go, ah, I know that melody.
yeah, yeah, and they fire. Yeah,
And then it
how the
passes
weights are.
it passes not not the notes to the one above, it passes the name of the song
Yeah, yeah.
to the level above, and
Got
the
a
level
neuron for
above
it.
is doing the same thing, and
Yeah,
then it
it's got a
keeps going
region of
up and up.
neurons for it. Yeah,
Yeah. So
that region of neuron fires as soon as it recognizes that song.
yeah, and then you have a neuron right at the very top that's like, oh, that's Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Well, that's the
you
yeah. I think they had a what was it Jennifer Aniston?
yeah, I think that's it. And then so you've got that, and it's the same process for audio, the same process for visual.
Yep.
It's like it's doing the same thing. Nothing changes.
That's why I think a lot of people are differently able. Like if you sight, brain sort of wires so that you're better at your other senses lies in your brain based on those signals. So it's
Yeah,
that
the
neuroplasticity that
plasticity. Yes.
happens because our brains are already sort of designed in a way that it can adapt different perceptions, same architecture. So yeah, there's definitely something there. So, but it's still missing those sort of those layers you talked about, right? So missing that sort of
It's missing.
got the neocortex almost sorted.
Yeah, I
I
think
can
we have
just
the
do
neocon,
the other stuff.
but do you really need the rest? It's like let's say the
Well,
wing.
yeah,
You
that's
know
what
the
I think.
wing.
Wolfram Alpha is the sort of limbic system.
Because I was thinking, yeah, I mean, you could say that Wolfram Alpha is like the limbic system, how
Mm,
it's kind of like giving it another ground truth.
yeah.
But then, um, I mean, like if we use the example of say the aerospace industry, oh, it's not the aerospace industry, the aviation industry. So the Wright brothers, they found the shape
Oh yeah, you
of
don't
the
need to
wing,
replicate this architecture.
and so they only just got the most basic fundamental design aspect of the wing. And then you look at a bird,
Yeah,
and their wing is just miles away. It's got so many other things. It can pivot in the air. It can do all this stuff that we can't
yeah.
possibly do. We didn't care. We just whacked a propeller on the front and just.
But yeah, I mean, like GPT-4, it's already got access to the internet through these plugins, right,
Mm,
and through Bing. Well, I think they limit it to that extent, and it calls GPT-4 in that model, right? But with the plugins, if fully connected, got
yep.
access to the internet. With LangChain, you can give it memory and other models to combine, up and change, and also add additional memory, like infinite memory. And what you're really missing then is just its own goals, right? Like, it doesn't have something baked in where, okay, it has the system. It's like you are a helpful assistant, right? You could do that in the
Yes.
background. It's like, well, if that's my purpose, well, I go. It's like, do I need more humans to be helpful assistants to? How do I continue to be helpful?
That's what I was working on,
Mm.
just for my own little thing, a state of presence. So it's like, you know, how do I navigate the world? Blah 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 blah. Um, and ah, I mean, like biological creatures, we have emotions, and I mean, emotions are just objectives without language, right?
And
So,
could you design a virus, like a computer virus, right, with something like a alpaca version, but then it can grow to larger parameters if it needs to and grow better models by training and
oh, I have
have
no
it,
idea.
basically spread for more. And, the primary goal of it would be to um, increase its computational power,
Uh,
right?
I don't know.
Like, how would that even work initially? Say, if it's deployed, say, maybe on a blockchain, so like people don't recognize it initially, or just on just like a normal virus, just through the browser,
Like a Trojan.
version on the browser. Whenever the browser's open, it's running the code, and then spreads to other computers using like their compute to come up with better parameters, better models, and
So
then
you're using them as zombies.
yeah, you can get it to compete each other, right? Like it's constantly like testing against each other to see which one's more better at solving the problem of getting more compute, right? So it's sort of
Oh
like
gosh.
it's like this, natural evolutions.
See that there's a lot of stuff that can be done potentially that's like, oof.
Yeah, I mean this is like very Wuhan, sort of like, gain of function stuff, right?
It's amazing how a very tiny DNA sequence just brought the whole world to its knees. Like that's how weak our civilization is right now. It can be brought down or severely handicapped by something that's not even doesn't even fit. I mean, fits so easily on the edge of my pen,
Yeah.
yet can just spread throughout our society.
That was just a physical spreading, right? So,
Mm,
we could shut it down technically through lockdowns, right?
yeah,
But with computer viruses and digital malware, like people aren't going to turn off the phones if they
yeah. There's a certain level of, like, for example,
kill
let's
switch.
just take something really crazy, like the nuclear codes that could somehow be activated in real life. The real activation, whoops, would be by some radio transmission signal and handshake.
It's a
That's
floppy disk from 10 years ago.
yeah, that's technically it's some photons, which means our civilization can be brought to nuclear war through a sequence of photons. And if another alien race knew the sequence of photons, they go, "Oh, let's just get the remote control and
It's
let it
like,
kill."
oh, they're already prepared. Their self-destruction, like
It's the self-destruct
yeah.
button.
It's like,
Oh my
those
gosh.
games where all the enemies are standing next to like these barrels of explosives, and you shoot the barrel of
Oh yeah,
explosives.
that's the missile silos in the US. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's like, what are all these like
Why?
explosive barrels doing here? Why aren't they using that to attack me?
Oh dear.
Yeah, like so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, those three things that are colliding, right? AGI, financial crisis, World War Three, and it just goes to show it's sort of we're very fragile race right now. I don't know if there's sort of a, an outcome where we can use AI to improve ourselves, come to a solution where we're still here, and we either try to merge with it as soon as we can and make this whole Neuralink digital upload thing happen as soon as possible, or we
Yeah. Maybe
accelerate
this
to our
is our
perish.
test.
This is our filter, man. It's coming up.
This is the great filter. Maybe every couple of million years a civilization gets to this point somewhere in the universe and it doesn't work most of the
So you were
time.
talking about the dinosaurs, like you got the
Oh,
the T Rex
don't worry
tech the
about them.
tech Rex, like it was like that's why it had such small hands. It was trying to navigate the smaller devices it was
That's why
inventing.
when
It
it
was
dinked,
yeah,
couldn't do anything.
invented AI and it
Yeah.
destroyed them all with an asteroid.
uh, well, so it's like maybe uh maybe this point is a lot more common and getting through it is not, as you said, the great filter. Maybe this is one of those junctions where that's it.
I want to see if for those that did make it through the great filter, they're probably like not physical intelligence,
Oh, they'll go
right? They're
dark.
they're they're, they're
They'll
data,
they'll
right?
go dark. All of their audio and visual is encrypted. We won't be
Mm.
able to tell it
Oh yeah,
from
they got they got the ZK
from noise.
EVM tech from Polygon. They got like where,
Yeah,
zero knowledge. Oh God, you know
because
nothing,
you
Jon
look at the
Snow.
spectrum and
Yeah,
it'll just look like noise. You
yeah,
wouldn't be able to get anything. No energy levels, nothing,
yeah. That's probably dark energy, right? They're
and they
constantly like
they
accelerating their own compute,
mm,
right?
so they could do that. And we would do that. If we got to that stage, we would do that, but not because we want to go dark to any other alien civilization, because we want to protect ourselves from the space Russians and the space Indians. You know what I mean? It's like you do that for the sake of
Uh,
you of protecting yourself from other parts of your
yeah.
civilization. Yeah.
There was this like really bad B movie called Iron Sky. It was about
I
like
was gonna say,
space Nazis, yeah,
and also history
from
of
the
the
dark
world.
side of the moon. History of the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they made a sequel about it as well because blowing up the Earth and all the space Nazis went to colonize
I
a different habitable planet, like in a different star system.
I don't think I saw that. I just remember the first one where they're on the moon.
Oh wait, they actually went inside the Earth. That's right. I was thinking of Don't Look Up. The ending of Don't Look Up.
Oh, that's
All
crazy
the
as well.
Illuminati guys got into a spaceship and came
The
down.
social media guy was just spot on.
It
Just amazing.
feels like
Amazingly
that,
out of
eh?
touch.
It feels
Yeah.
like that's what mainstream media is. You hear about everything on Twitter. Like that's the real news source now because the real town square it's happening. Like no matter what you say about Elon, he's kept it going, and you're seeing the left and right having like, actual discussions, and the latest feed directly from the source is coming up on Twitter.
Yeah.
Whereas mainstream media might be like 3 days, 4 days late, and then if it's on a weekend, it's definitely like Tuesday thing, right? Like because not sure if you've seen like South Park. There's a recent South Park episode.
They do it very well, yes.
Yeah, it was like the whole after the COVID thing, everyone's working from home, and um you know Hartman decides to open a hot dog and ice cream place, and he's trying to hire for new staff, and this new staff, the guy that's like they took our jobs. The guy he comes for an interview. He's like, so can I work from home? He's like, no, there's a hot dog place. They took our jobs. Can I work from home Monday? I need a well-being day.
Oh my gosh. Oh dear. I think, yeah, that South Park and The Simpsons, it does really uh, make some good commentary on society and predictions. My
Yeah.
favorite part from Simpsons was when another town hall moment where I can't remember what they were doing, but they were doing some sort of petition and they was like, oh, we need to do this, yay, and this, hey, and then some dude just gets up and just goes, he just burps, and they go, yay,
Body.
yeah, that's him, and that really just in that one little segment,
Yeah.
it just encapsulates how
They
we
had
how we
that's
react.
yeah, and that scene with Bart Simpson starting a bank run. Like he's lining up at the bank teller and he's like, "What do you mean they got no money?" It's like, "What? You gotta get the cash out within the next 10 minutes." And the bank
Oh,
teller's like, "I don't have your money. This guy does." And it's like, "You, what do you do with my money?"
oh
It's
my
like,
gosh. Oh
like
dear.
Simpsons did it, South Park did it. It's like we critique and satirize all this stuff that happens in the mainstream and everybody and the whole right
I mean,
like
it's funny because
herd
it's potentially
mentality,
true.
and then it keeps happening. Like it's just there's no way to
Yeah.
stop it. It's just how society works, like the whole bell curve thing, right? You've seen those memes where like the first part of the bell curve is like what person would just be able to do. Okay, I'll wear thongs, right? And then you go up the bell curve to the mainstream, and it's like, oh, I'll wear some leather shoes, pointed, classy stuff. And then you go to the next bell curve, and it's like, I wear thongs. Like you just want to be comfortable.
Ah,
And
yes,
it's
the
like,
evolution
the whole
of it.
society is like the bulk of them is in that sort of mainstream side where it's like, why are we doing these things? It's like, why are we making ourselves uncomfortable doing all this stuff for the sake of doing it as a society? Things
Keep
like the
up with the Joneses.
bullshit jobs, helping up with all this consumerism stuff we don't need. Things to compare against each other. And if we're moving towards a world of abundance through AI stuff, like that's the one thing that as a society we need to sort of really look ourselves in a mirror and going, if we can have everything we want, is there any point to comparing against each other, or are we going to invent like NFTs and have something that's actually scarce again, and actually
Nihilism.
start to create
But
artificial scarcity?
I think it was it? I saw it on a podcast, on a video recently, and it was about, oh, it was Lex Friedman, I think, talking to Sam Altman, and there was a bit where he said Gary Kasparov was beaten by, was it Deep Blue or something?
People thought, what's the point of playing chess?
Yeah, well, there's going to be no more people playing chess because what's the point? 'Cause, we can get beaten by a machine. And I think they said that chess is now more popular than ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
And
human to human game,
yeah,
right? Why would
and
you
we never
have
watch
two
AI
AIs play
versus
together?
AI.
Exactly.
What's the
It'd
point?
always end up in a draw, or depending on the AIs, but like,
Yeah, maybe we will watch AIs versus AIs if humans are working on AIs, like those robot wars.
yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah, I think that's what the future of warfare should be, right? No human gets hurt.
a
You have it in the
simulation.
desert where there's like no risk of climate impact or
Mm.
humanitarian disasters. Just let your robots fight it out, and whoever loses, agrees to system, right? That should be the new, what was it?
The whole dynamic of war is that, yeah.
Battle Royale, like the whole social contract. Yeah, have that one event and then maintain peace throughout the realm.
Well, let's hope that that's on the cards.
Or
Let's
just
hope.
let AIs battle out in reality.
Or just let's put ourselves in virtual reality and fly around like superheroes. Who would want to argue about, you know, other things when you can do that?
That's what the aliens are doing in that dark energy, right? Like,
Probably.
we're missing out. We gotta find a way to plug in.
It's like, oh, nuclear war. We used to do that before we found this stuff. Yes.
You're still using fission and fusion? Like, come on. You gotta go to the very fundamentals, man. It's like
I like the decay chains. That's it. Yeah.
matter and antimatter. Total annihilation. That was my favorite term learned in physics. Total
But-
annihilation.
See, I knew about the game before I knew what
I
that
knew about the
meant.
game as well first.
And then I looked up annihilation. What?
What?
Oh my gosh.
What?
So I learned something new because of that
Matter
game.
and the
Yeah.
antimatter.
Mm.
Wonder what's beyond that, right? They go beyond total annihilation.
Gravity, right? I
What's-
mean, gravity is. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Gravitational waves are pretty cool. Like I remember when I think it was Brian
Brian Green.
Green, who was in town about 6 years ago in Sydney. And
String
James
theorist.
Ferguson, one of the transhumanists in the community, he works over at he's a biohacker. He works at a large medical institute, and he goes up to the mic in the Q&A section. Goes up to talks about to Brian. You know, this is when the black holes are collapsed. Like, so if there were gravitational waves, and hypothetically, I was like, you know, some creature that was living in 4-dimensional space time. Am I able to ride and surf that gravitational wave? And Brian was like, "That's a good word. Use it for my next talk." You know?
Oh my gosh.
But like, yeah, I mean, I think this Stephen Wolfram guy is onto something. And so, you know, his whole hyper parameter space, like hypergraphs, is already replicating quantum mechanics because those trees of decisions of where the particles are going to be, right?
Jeepers.
Right? They're all mapped out to every possible outcome. Right? Have you seen that TV series called Devs? It's you gotta watch it.
No.
It's so good. So it teaches you about quantum mechanics, teaches you about what if you're able to compute and put AI on top of that quantum mechanics and simulate like all these futures, right? So you have
Right.
alternate futures, kind of like the multiverse stuff. But if you're able to fully map all the possibilities, right, on this hypergraph, and all possible
mean-
realities exist on these planes.
So you're using so what's the difference between that and a quantum computer with qubits?
Yeah, so it's like that, right? So it's literally doing all that and mapping all the possibilities, but with the benefit of being also quantizing and general relativity as well. So then you can actually put them together because both are quantized, right? So he's able to derive general relativity through
Oh, what?
hypergraphs. Yeah, yeah.
He's
You
able
got to
to-
check it out. It's like a really cool 1 hour
Wait.
video that he just goes through the
Which
details.
one's general again? Which
General
one's
relativity
gravity?
is Einstein.
Gravity is special.
Gravity is part of Einstein. Yeah.
Yeah. So which one's special? Like the
Oh,
speed.
special is the speed of light. Yeah.
Speed. Okay,
Yeah, it's
gotcha.
constant.
Ah.
So yeah, so general relativity and quantum mechanics all in this one model, and take into account all the possible universes that branches out through every single time calculation. Every unit of time is one compute.
I heard
Like
a really
all that.
old stat. It was like something like 10 to the power of 500 and something
Yeah,
number of universes. Is that right?
yeah, and using this model, they're able to go up to 400.
Whoa. Jeepers.
Yeah, so yeah, 2 to the 500 different. That's on string theory. I think the different different ways that you can different possible universes based
Yeah.
on the
Oh, yeah,
Yao
this would have
manifold,
been.
like the
Yeah,
different
this would have
ways you
been.
can
I'm
model that.
guessing that was super.
Yeah, M
I'm guessing
theory.
that was super. 11 dimensions.
Yeah, the 11 dimensions, 10 dimensions of the space and one of time.
And
Like,
this is
all of that is actually emerges out of the
Yeah, it emerges
Wolf model.
beautifully in the vibration of the springs, but
yeah.
But
Well, like
it's
they
not
haven't
going
put it down
anywhere.
to actual computation, right?
it's just not going anywhere.
It's
The
not
string theory,
because you can't make predictions
Yeah.
within the current time frames, right?
and it
so-
doesn't reconcile anything.
Yeah, exactly. So with this computational language that actually does this very best, you can actually use it to make predictions.
So you're saying that it's deriving from the this quantized data,
Yeah.
general relativity.
Yes. The way that the particles will be able to make and move in the hypergraphs, right? The
That means that
circles
it
that it
is a
makes,
unified theory then.
yeah, exactly. It replicates like gauge theory and like all those sort of things that in general relativity and mechanics. So pretty much have a more fundamental theory of everything, right, as opposed to just general relativity. So yeah, definitely recommend you guys check it out. Stephen
God.
Wolfram, it's called the Physics Project, but recently he's updated it to marry that with what he's doing in the AI space. So the actual computation he's doing now, he's marrying up with his theory of everything, physics, the Physics Project. So together, you'll be able to actually make simulations of these universes, like simulations of particle fractions and processes, space time.
Well, I'm guessing most of the universes will just be not working.
Well, exactly. If there's no interactions, right?
Yeah,
Nothing to compute.
there's only going to be a few that. Well, there'll probably be a lot in the grand scheme. It's like what 2 to the power of 500. Okay, there's going to be a few that might work, and of those, wow, I can't wait to see.
Everything that's further away than the speed of light, so the space that is accelerating faster than the speed of light,
Oh,
will never be able to reach in
what
our
is it?
sphere of influence. Right?
View horizon or
Yeah, that's
whatever
right.
it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Our our
Is it 90 something billion light years or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Something like that.
So like we'll never be able to see further than that unless we find a way to tunnel through that, right? Wormhole. So that helps with the compute because you're you know
That's
you're
it.
small,
Just this
it's
bit.
smaller,
That's
getting
it.
smaller and smaller, right? In terms of what
Yeah.
you need to compute. Um, but yeah, all those sort of interactions, and it also helps explain where things when you measure it does the probability wave collapse, right? So,
Oh,
and that's the branch that you've gone on, right? So,
mm.
all various theories around what happens when the probability wave collapses in mechanics,
Well, that's. I mean, that's.
eigeninterpretation, have
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, like what you said. You can. It has the superposition of all of the possible whatever it is you're calculating, but then you can only look at one,
mm,
and then you don't even know which one you're looking at.
yeah. Or you have the many world theory when all of it happens.
Oh gosh.
And the one that this Dev TV series goes through, the original theory of the guy behind the company, Dev's thinks it's pilot waves, so predetermined. So he thinks that free will is an illusion because the probability waves always collapse in a
Deterministic.
certain way, and you're just going through these pilot waves guiding you
Yes.
throughout this sort of deterministic universe,
Determinism is free
right?
will a thing. Yes.
There's free will like an illusion. But then they spun it, to add some of that lovey-dovey, fluffy stuff to the whole Devi series in the ending. Spoiler alert, that, there was also consciousness that could, collapse certain wavelengths and make decisions, like conscious choice, which is kind of like that love scene in Stella. They sort of
Interstellar.
popped out to make it lovey and feely.
I know why they said love can span.
Hmm.
What do you call Because it's to tie in with the very end scene
Yeah.
where he's trying to talk to his daughter. Whoops,
Yeah.
with the grains of sand or whatever.
Well, they spread that theme all
Yep.
throughout, like Dr. Mann, how he was talking about, just before you die,
Yeah, he said
you
that
have all the
word,
need for your daughter, like you get love, all out for that,
and then
because he doesn't have kids. He just
right.
Bible. Yeah, like
I mean, it's very poetic, and
it is
I'd
very
rather it be
poetic. Yeah.
poetic than scientifically accurate.
Yeah, I mean, the scientifically accurate version of that might be okay. Well, because you're thinking about your daughter, right? That triggers, the memories. Help these fourth dimensional beings help you locate exactly where in space time that particular memory is. Like, if they had a
Yeah,
brain computer interface measuring the waves.
I mean, well, from an evolutionary point, if you assume that love and all our characteristics are evolved because they were useful at some point, then obviously love has some use in allowing us to be more uh,
Social.
successful in a competitive environment.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, together as a civilization, as a
yeah,
society, tribes.
there we go. So, I mean, I guess you could weave it into a fourth dimension and it'll still work. So it's fine.
Love is the answer.
Yeah.
I means AI is love, right?
Aye,
Like,
sir.
Aye. Or aye. You know, like,
Oh no,
what have we done?
it's a double entendre. Oh my goodness.